Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a bumpy ride on these treacherous seas of YouTube, but we're finally reaching the port, because this is the final episode of Season 4 of Chilling Wargamers. I am your professional wargaming interviewer, Andy2D6, and as always, my co-pilot, amateur wargaming interviewer, Mr. Spud Tate.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Andy 2D6 of Doom. How are
How's
you
it going,
today?
Mr. Spud? I'm very good.
I'm very wonderful, thank you. Just chilling as always.
Excited for this
Sure.
final episode of the season.
I'm excited and sad all at the same time.
Well, time to introduce the next A-lister that we've got in here today. We have the barely audible wargaming interviewer, Mr. Stevie the Maniac.
Yes. Yay! Yes.
Is this audio better? Yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. No
Lovely.
subtitles required this time.
You
Did
sure?
you get
I
like
don't mind.
30 people around you talking about the same thing? And then throw in some like trains or something, it should be fine.
Sweet.
Yes, how are you today, Mr. Stevie?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you two?
Excellent.
Delicious.
Lovely. Delicious.
The show wouldn't be complete without a guest. What have we got in store for you today? We have Mark from Dreamforge Games.
Yay!
Yay! Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hello there.
Hey,
How are you today?
good. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to the world? Tell us about yourself a bit.
Sure. Yeah. I think this is maybe the second or third time I've done an interview. My name is Mark Mondragon, and I am the owner-operator of Dreamforge Games. Kind of been doing this for a lot of years, but seriously for about the last 4. And recently, within it's about 15 to 18 months ago, stepped into producing plastic, stepped away from metal and resin, and it's been quite an experience. Definitely fun, but sometimes trying.
What was your background in before you got into miniatures?
Completely different. Procurement manager. So I was doing blade server switches and that kind of stuff for internet companies in San Francisco.
It's a bit of a
It's
change.
quite a change, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is a lot more rewarding than the cubicle and the 9 to 5.
So you started off with the other materials and now you've moved into plastic. How have you found that change?
The time to market it's pretty hard to get my fingers around, and I finally have a feel for what it takes to get a product all the way through production with plastic. But I mean, I think that there's things about both mediums that have their advantages and their disadvantages. With the old metal and resin, you could basically, I could go and create the CAD model and within 2 weeks to a month have something out and sell it. The problem is it's not scalable. So you end up in a situation where if the demand is good for the product that you've got, there's just no way to meet that. And that's really where plastic shines. It's when you start getting into high volume that it allows you to kind of reach out and get all the little shinies into people's hands. Go ahead.
We typically hear that the startup cost for getting into plastic is higher than metal or resin, for example. So more risk involved.
Definitely. It's considerably higher. To give you an example, when I first released the Leviathan Crusader and the Mortis, the master for that ran me about $2,000, and then since I do my own mold work, and at that point I had done my own casting, that was about $500 in materials for the silicone rubber, and each resin cost maybe $30 in resin. The real cost in that is that you get a very limited number of pulls out of a silicone mold before it starts to degrade.
Right.
So the difference in the cost between going from like metal and resin into plastics it's astronomical. the same Leviathan Crusader in hard tooling retail would run about 120,000. So definitely not cheap. But I mean the the Crusader and the Mortis are they're basically they're top end kits. Both myself and Wargames Factory wanted to kind of put the best foot forward and put a Cadillac kit out there. And do something that when I originally did the resin kit for the Crusader and the Mortis, they were posable in the sense that you could make them as posable as the current plastic kits, but you had to lock them into place. You had to super glue the joints, and you couldn't fuss with it after the fact. So went back and did some revisions on this to where you could basically keep it posable. And if you wanted to lock it into position because you were worried about, knocking it around or wearing out the joints, you could still do that. But I figured we might as well take advantage of the medium, and it allows for thinner walls. It's a lot more durable. So we did, and I think that, it kind of came at the expense of the actual cost of the tooling, because we could have gotten away with about half the number of hard tools or sprues in that particular kit if we wouldn't have gone the posable route. But just to kind of set the Dreamforge product apart from existing product that's out there, we decided to go ahead and really just kind of nail at it. The only thing that I look at when I look at that, aside from the cost, obviously, which is incredible, was there were some, when I look at the 15 millimeter scale, the smaller one, there's part of me that wishes I would have made it much simpler rather than kind of, it's basically a shrunk down with some components changed of its bigger brothers. And it doesn't really lend well at that scale to anybody without patience to build it. So it would be nice to have a kit that's in there that's a lot simpler. And I do plan on making like a light walker and some other vehicles that may be a little easier a little less time consuming to put together. But I think that I say that now, but I reserve the right to lie about that. At my core, more than a gamer, I'm a modeler, and kind of where I got my inspiration is just being a kid and coming up on like the Tamiya kits and that kind of stuff, and that's what lights my fire. When I look at the kits and I look at the infantry, and I look at the options that I can provide, they're really my baseline. Trying to produce kind of this entire world and extra detail and a lot of options and a lot of posability. So really, that's where I start with all my designs.
Do you actually play any games nowadays?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you actually play any games, or are you still just?
Actually guilty. I haven't played a game in quite a while.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know exactly. The area that I'm in has one game store. That's about 60 minutes away. So there's not a lot of community built out where I am here in California. So aside from going to conventions and stuff like that, there's not a whole lot of access to that. So when it comes to the game design itself, I've handed that off to someone who has that passion, that understanding, and the continual plug-in. So I'm working with Roby Jenkins over at Precinct Omega to help me build the rules and define them. It's going to be a challenge for me to get them play tested, so I have to rely on him and the community to deal with a lot of that. But my access to local groups is pretty limited. Because
like the Leviathan Titans that you've got, they are probably like the biggest underground models you can get. I would say anyway, they are like the most recognizable models in the community.
Right.
I'd personally rather have yours. I've actually got one of yours compared to the certain other companies' one. Because it's just well worth its money compared to it. It moves. It's massive. It's hard plastic. The details better. Everything. Unfortunately, I couldn't get like the other one at the same time, so I could have compared how awesome the your kit with the movability and the springs in a spirit, it was just amazing. I was just like proper excited when I got it, and then then I opened it and there was just a cat in it. It was just really weird, all the way from America.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
I mean, hats off to other companies. I might as well say their name. Games Workshop finally produced a
Send out
night.
the shirts.
So now did you get?
And I mean, honestly, I quite like it. I like the Games Workshop night, and I've been pretty vocal in saying that. I mean, there's some things about the legs I think are a little shorter, the shoulders are too wide. I'm not sure which, and that's just nitpicky. I think that the kit is a fine kit. I kind of wish that they would have done some posability with the legs. I think it was a missed opportunity. They didn't need to go crazy like I did, but I think that they could have added a little more than they did.
They should do though, because they have got that backing, they have got that money and the skills and the tools just sat there waiting, and they could have like it is a nice like piece to look at, and it is a perfect representation of the old epic stuff, and I think that's why a lot of people picked up on it. But I think the new one that they've just brought out from Forge World is probably a lot even better than the plastic kit. Maybe I haven't seen the resin kit in parts. I will have seen it built up and what they've done to it, so it is pretty nice, that one. But let's say like yours, I didn't really know what the older Titans looked like, because I didn't get into the game till later on, till like probably about 10 years ago. So I didn't even know what epic was till they brought these new Titans. And I also saw yours, and I were going to use your Titan as 2 Dreadnought statistics together, just so I could use it in a game, because obviously then there were no such thing as a knight in it. But yeah, it's really, really cool.
I'm sure the way Games Workshop look at it is the amount of extra sprues that it would take to make it fully posable, potentially. Is that going to generate a boost in sales high enough to warrant that extra cost? Is the way they're going to look at it, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, I'm positive they approach it from a very dollar and cents point of view. They've made their splash, they have their market, they don't need to develop it, so they're looking at it from the bottom line stance. And yeah, I mean, I can't fault them for that. I look at the number of sprues and the cost of the kit, and it kind of makes me shrink back a little bit, because I understand the what it costs actually after the molds are cut to actually shoot each one of those kits, and I think they're priced higher than they needed to be, but I think that they priced it where they thought they could, so that's kind of where it's at.
The fact that they are producing these larger and larger plastic kits now, does that affect your business at all?
No, not really. In a lot of ways, I owe Games Workshop a thanks for actually producing rules for something when people want to use my kits as a stand-in. I'm still working on mine, so the more the merrier out there. The vision for Dreamforge and Iron Core has always been a little more vehicle centric, and that doesn't mean that infantry don't have their place, and it doesn't mean that I don't want the game to be scalable down to the point that it's just a single squad. And really, I mean, that's the goal, is to get it to where, not everybody has a spare 120 or whatever it is and change to kick out for a kit, or the patience to build something that large and paint it and get it on a table. So I have to be very, very cognizant of what my customers are able to do or willing to do. So when we are approaching the game design, we're approaching it from the standpoint of wanting to make it basically grow from a very intimate game. Most of my background in gaming has been more role-playing games than it has been in the tactical, and most of my tactical gaming has been military. I do a lot of the World War II stuff rather than the sci-fi stuff. So basically, I just want to make sure that when we have that more intimate game with less components on the table, less requirements for resources, that we develop it in a way that we can hold your interest, that it paints a story, so that when you're playing, you care about Fritz. Fritz means something to you, and it's not just, oh, this guy's just a meat shield for the tank or the light walker that comes up. And there's a few different ways to kind of approach that. I mean, you could kind of do extended campaign rules, or there's ways that without going like way off into too much depth, there's ways that they can affect the game, and the fact that one little piece is missing kind of matters. And especially, I mean, coming at it from the approach that I kind of laid out, which is, from a modeler standpoint, when I get my stormtroopers and I start assembling them, I like putting the extra bits on. I like creating kind of the character around it, and I want it to kind of matter. But I also, and this is going to really be the biggest challenge, is being able to scale that up from that very intimate game to a full-scale battle war game where you've got all these units on the table at one time. And there are definitely challenges in doing that, and I don't think that, I mean, I'm hoping that I can achieve that. I think that a lot of companies have tried, and a lot of companies have fallen short here and there, and it doesn't mean that I won't. I'm not being overly, I don't know what the term would be for that. I'm being cautious about how well I think it's going to scale, but the attempt is there. And every time we look at a rule and we're writing a rule, and we view how it interacts, we ask ourselves, is this scalable? Is there a way to get this to where we can simplify it, even if we have to change it for when you go past X number of units, that we can just look at how that particular rule section is dealt with, and still keep the common thread through the base core rule, so that nothing really changes. It's just how the rule is applied.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the goal with it. So when I look at Iron Core and Dreamforge Games and the future products, I still want to make big walkers. The rule of cool is there for me. I love building the kits. I love playing with them. I want to do tanks. I want to do more vehicles. Infantry definitely got more stuff on the way. But basically, I mean, as far as the niche in the community, I mean, I kind of had to put on my big boy pants when I stepped into plastic. It's very, very expensive. So when we look at doing this stuff, it's not really to compete with Games Workshop in the sense that that I feel I need to take a part of that market share. It's about making a game that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So anyhow, I've kind of prattled there.
The thing is that you guys brought it out like maybe 5 years before Games Workshop, so they can't really say that you tried getting in first because you were there. Yeah, they copied you. Really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was. I don't know if you know the full history, but I mean, I made a 24-inch tall resin kit way back. I think 2000, 2002, something like that. And Games Workshop took offense to it. They said that it was too much like one of their kits, and basically came at me and said that,
send out digits.
Yes. But I looked at the reality of what I was going to make on that, and defending it legally was going to cost me about $70,000 at the time. And with that kind of a kit, there was just no way it made financial sense. So one of the good things that came out of that was protection for the current Leviathans that you see. Yeah. Basically, we made them look at the catalog as it was out there and say, okay, look at this and you tell me if there's anything that you're going to draw an objection to, because we're not going to be sitting at this table again talking about this same issue. So we finally did reach an agreement, and I stopped producing the 24-inch resin models, but that safeguarded the current designs. So it was well worth the expense of the initial confrontation. I mean, in the end, I mean, the Games Workshop definitely likes to throw its muscle around, but in the end, to them, it's business. So it's not a personal matter, and I didn't take it as personal. And I can't really blame them when they're looking at things. When they look at something and they feel that it is infringement, they have kind of the obligation to voice that opinion. Now, whether they're right or wrong is a whole other thing, and unfortunately, that needs to be taken care of in a legal setting, and that becomes very expensive. And a lot of companies just don't have the resources to deal with that.
Games Workshop are known for leaving a lot of gaps in what they do. It's like the sides of their business aren't always completely synced up. So they'll have a rule book, for instance, with rules for a unit, and pictures of it or drawings, and then there won't be a model for it for maybe 4 or 5 years. So all these other companies will spring up producing them.
Well, they've brought some codexes like Tyranids out, and it were a whole codex, and they didn't actually bring a model out for a certain unit, and I'm just like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was the the spore mine.
The
giant Tyranid spot. They never actually brought a model out for it.
And they've removed it from the most recent codex, haven't they? Now.
Yeah.
So they never even had a model for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen 3 little garage industry casters.
Yeah.
After that particular spore model. Yeah.
Oh my.
It seems like they do bring it on themselves a bit. They could, if they just sealed up those gaps a little bit, they'd save themselves the trouble of then having to go after people legally that were just filling the gaps that they'd left. You would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, they definitely have changed their business model within the recent past. I mean, you can see them pumping out more releases than they have in recent memory, and I think that that change from sharing with the customer base to being very, very secretive. I think that may be part of the reason. They don't want to give those tells to the little miniature markets out there that want to make their stuff and sell it on the side. But I don't know. They do a lot of things I just don't understand. To alienate your customer base and kind of be aggressive against spreading the word and getting your stuff out there. It really makes no sense to me one way or the other. I don't know. It's a business decision they made, and I don't agree with it, I guess.
Your really huge models that you do, are they still the most popular ones in your range?
They're very popular. The infantry, because it's a nice, easy entry point, and it doesn't require as much work, is actually doing much, much better as far as quantity sold. But really, that's to be expected. I mean, at 20 US or 40 US, depending on the box size, compared to retail of about 120 or so on the larger kit, it also appeals to those that just don't have the time or the interest in the bigger models. But I mean, having said all that, the Leviathans are doing great. The only one that I wish was doing a little better was the 15 mil size.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of one of those things that if I didn't do a Kickstarter, I don't know that I would have done it. It was basically to test the waters to see if there is a market out there in the 15 mil scale. And it's not that they're failing miserably, but they're not doing as well as the big Crusaders, and they're not doing as well as the infantry. So I'm looking at ways of making kind of add-on kits, different kind of waist sections, different weapons, and that kind of stuff, so I can fold them into the full-size game and have them as kind of lighter walkers without looking like just shrunk-down versions of the big guys, and maybe help. I think that, I mean, the bottom line is kind of what the market is telling me is 28 millimeter has got scale. It's really kind of where the market wants to be for the most part, and unless you do something like Drop Zone and you come out with the entire thing at one time, it's just a little harder to get that penetration in there, and it's just, when I look at that, I just wonder what, especially in plastic, whether or not it's worth it to kind of go that route or not. So at least for the time being, I'm going to stick, I think, mostly with the 28s.
Yeah, I went to a convention like a month ago. I went to a local convention, and every year I buy something from this 15mm scale guy. Every year he does like mechs, vehicles, everything. And I was talking to him about it. I was like, I never ever see any of this on the internet at all, anywhere. I says, but I was like, how well does it sell? Because obviously they're still there, and
right.
And the stand were like 3 times bigger this year. And like, so have you got like a good market? Is the game straight? We're like, yeah, it's absolutely mental how busy we are like throughout the year. That's why we've expanded so much, because they make models for games that aren't really that big.
Right.
But some of the kits that they do are absolutely stunning. Because I just love robots, and I just buy just giant robots and just paint them up and build them because they're really, really cool. Like the first one I bought last year It was just a little metal model about that. It had 28 different parts, and it was just absolutely a pleasure. Like, it was fully articulated and everything. And then obviously that was just like, obviously it was metal, so it was proper heavy. But it was really cool. Just like, I was just like, oh, got it home out of like bag, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's like, this is so cool. Like, why can't other kits just be like this? And then.
Yeah, I mean, this really is. I've heard it said before, and I agree with it. This really is kind of the golden age for gamers. I've never seen this many producers out there making such a wide, varied product offering as I do right now, and I think that, I mean, Kickstarter plays a part in that because it allows them to get some funding. But
just a little bit.
but and I think that the other part to that puzzle is not everybody was a great hand modeler, but if you know anything about how to work in CAD, you know, there is an expense to get a model printed, but you can have something that is, you know, left to right sides are the same, and when you do an add-on, you know it's going to fit. So it has opened up, all the technologies are kind of coming together and opening up the game community a lot more than it ever has been. Which is awesome. It's one of those things that for the customer base, it's great because you get a lot to choose from. For the manufacturer, it's a little more difficult. It's easier to make your stuff, but you're now also competing with, you know, 20, 30 other makers within that same little region. Like John, you were talking about the 15 mil scale. John Paulson, a friend of mine, recently did a Kickstarter called Mecha Front, and he offered 15 mil scale, which is mainly what he's been interested in, and some 6 to kind of do it. And he does the big walkies and that kind of stuff. And it's infantry are really just hardly concerned for him at this point. But without the tools for Kickstarter and without the CAD tools, I don't think that he'd be going down that road. And it's one that he definitely enjoys, and I'm glad to see it.
Speaking of Kickstarter, would you ever have been able to fathom moving into plastics without Kickstarter?
No. That's the truth. I mean, basically, I'll give you kind of the lowdown on that was I was looking for a resin caster in China. I had been using a resin caster here in the U.S., and he was going through transition and sold his business. And like I said, kind of originally, it's not very scalable. But China has always been kind of, if you need a lot of things made, you go to China. And I had been kind of holding out on that because I like to keep production here in the U.S. for a bunch of reasons. But I figured, I'll go out and look. So I had contacted, at that point, Wargamers Factory was working here in the U.S. through a company called Ghost Studios, and I didn't know I was going to be talking with Wargamers Factory. So I had my printer, the guy who did my 3D prints, said that, hey, you know, I've got a contact in China. If you're looking that direction, guy over at Ghost Studios, you should go ahead and talk to him. And so I did. I went ahead and did an initial setup for a meeting and kind of went over what I was looking for, and little did I know he was talking with YK over in China, and YK had seen my stuff out on various websites and really quite liked it, and decided that you know, he wanted to. He was looking at my stuff and looking at his company, thinking, you know, I think that first off that we can do this. Second is there was some history there and some assumptions that were made, and I don't really want to go too deep into that, but it was basically a way for him to show that they can get some things done. And looking at the product, he really liked the designs, and we kind of sat down on a Skype meeting and chatted for a couple hours, and I found out that he doesn't do resin, he does plastic. And we started down a path of discussing, you know, hey, is there a way to get this done? Because he started quoting me some very, very reasonable mold prices because he wanted to work with me and I wanted to work with him. And it still came back to the fact that for me to secure funding, even for the pricing that he was giving me, there was just going to be no way. So really, at about the same time, Kickstarter was just starting to take off in the game industry stuff. And I said, hey, how would you feel about it if we approached it from this angle? And we basically made an agreement and went forward with that. And as the Kickstarter grew, we're looking at, okay, how do we keep this rolling, and how can we kind of build on the catalog? Because when I initially went forward and I was looking at doing the Leviathans and one set of infantry, and that was it. That was going to be the total of the Kickstarter. And the interest seemed to be there, so we just kept adding things, and we'd check in once in a while and go, hey, okay, how's this, and does this look like something that we want to do? And admittedly, I think that we both got carried away. But the way he was looking at it was, it's at that point we had reached an agreement to where it would basically be financially reasonable for both of us to kind of keep heading down that path. So we did. And by the end of it, we had most of the Eisenkern faction flushed out. The only thing that I think that I still need to finalize them is going to be a tank and a light walker, and then we've got pretty much all of the main things filled. And at some point, it may be nice to do a flyer or a drop ship or something like that, but it's not required in order to play the game.
Well, speaking of factions, there's a question people are asking. Is there going to be another faction coming out?
Oh yeah, definitely. As soon as the Kickstarter is completed out, I'll start doing ticklers and teasers about what the next faction. I mean, it's going to be the Shadow Cache, which is an alien race, and my intention is to kind of alternate human faction and alien faction for releases. Yeah. There's a total of 9 factions in the Iron Core setting. The Shadow Cache is going to be the first, and the Shadow Cache are, and I don't want to bore people to death, but basically they're where the Eisenkern got the tech for the walkers, so they're going to definitely be walker heavy. They view them much more as tools than machines of war, and really only adapted them as such after Eisenkern started fielding the Leviathans out there. But the Shadow Cache were the reason. I'm just going to kind of go in this briefly. The reason that I mean, when you look at a Leviathan and when you look at a big walker, I try to make certain things as much as I can make sense in why you would have them. I mean, why would you ever want a 4-story walking target? And really, I mean, the crux of it is it's a tool of morale and terror. Basically, what you had was you had Eisenkern troopers trying to defend their cities, sitting on a street corner, and around the corner comes a Shadow Cache walker, which is 4 stories tall, with a head, and it looks at them. And this poor little guy in this foxhole is going, I'm going to pee myself right now. And this thing just, I mean, you can tell it's looking right at you, and it charges down the street. And they would just break. They'd run. Who wouldn't at that point? So, I mean, really the point was for the Eisenkern, it was for their troops a morale tool. To deal with the bully on the block, you need a big brother who's going to come and kick their ass. You also need the way that the Shadow Cache fight their wars is they, for the most part, they ignore the distractions and go about what they're doing. So you need a way to really kind of get their attention, give them something they can't ignore. And really, I mean, there's nothing more obvious than a 4-story walking mech trundling down a street corner, about ready to take on your walker. So that's kind of the crux of why they're there.
That last Kickstarter, that was your second Kickstarter, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, the first one was just for releasing some metal Eisenkern infantry, and didn't really know how to run a Kickstarter. Didn't do amazingly well. I think I raised like $7,000 or something like that off of it. But lessons learned, and it did also allow me to kind of get out there and test the models a little better and find out where I needed to tweak them scaling wise. Those original metal ones were a bit more leggy, a little bit more lean, and it's kind of one of the things that it's when you spin a model on the computer screen and what you get in a final product when it's after it's printed and it's gone through the production process. it can surprise you how different it is. So basically, everything looks thinner when it's in real life. It's just how your eyes perceive a real-world object in compared to just a render on a screen. So I learned that I really needed to kind of make them a little bulkier, fatter than I really kind of thought looked appropriate. And then by the time it was done and had gone through production, it would hit about right. But yeah, so second time back with a Kickstarter. A lot learned on that one that was applied to the second one to keep the interest up and to keep people excited.
Looking at the difference between how much money the first one got and the second, if you can just continue going at that rate, then the third one will do quite well.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of Kickstarters, I think, have they're a wonderful tool. I think that when it comes to plastic, it's a hard tool, and what I mean by that is it's a difficult thing to get the mind wrapped around as far as the time it takes to produce something. So when I look at the next phase to this, and I look at the opposing force and all that, I want to make sure that I don't have unreasonable wait times for my backers. It's kind of it's actually about the only thing about this experience that has been really nerve-wracking. So when I look at how companies like Cool Mini or Not have handled it, I mean, they use it much more as a marketing tool, as a pre-order tool. Most of their stuff is done most of the time, and it seems to work well. I'm not sure if I'm going to take that same path, and I'm not actually 100% certain that I'm going to do another Kickstarter. It just depends on what the expenses for the game are, and whether or not that needs to be covered. And if I find that I'm just building up too much of a bill for that end of things, then I may need to do that. But I need to make sure that I give the time before we do a Kickstarter to get most of the models through the process, or at least most of the way through the process, to where all we're doing is basically like, okay, all we need to do at this point is push buttons on CNC machines and cut the tools. But all of the mold drafts, all of that has already been dealt with, because that's where the time crunch gets, and where this stuff really draws out to kind of an unreasonable length.
Are you a one-man army, or have you got more than one staff that works for Dreamforge, or do you just hire people?
No, you're looking at it. Basically, I do the model design, I do the box art, the instructions recently have been handled by China. I do the web stuff, everything. I'm trying to keep it as lean as humanly possible. And it's just, there's a few reasons. One is that, you need to, especially when you've got, when I've got the level of monetary commitments in the background for the tooling itself, I have to be very cognizant of where I am financially and how fast I grow and how that's done. Hiring a bunch of staff in order to take care of a lot of that stuff will push it much faster, but it's also going to cost a lot of money to do that. I could be all the way through design work of the game and the factions and all the CAD work, but I would be sitting here with a bill probably in the neighborhood of $50,000-$60,000. So it just made more sense, because I mean, I can keep pace with plastic production without a problem. So if I am cautious about how I deal with my end of things, then I don't really need to bring anybody in, because there's only so fast you can whip out a plastic kit. I mean, the realities of how long it takes to get this stuff in through production just kind of dictate my schedule. So if I had spent all that money to quickly push that stuff out to market, it would be good for my customers, but ultimately not great for Dreamforge. And when I look at the industry itself, there's, the war games industry, you think it's large, but it's really not that large. We are kind of still a very boutique industry. It's, you look at things like Hello Kitty, and they're selling them by the tens of thousands per month. And Wargames just don't do that. Even for Games Workshop, I mean, if you look at their bottom line, they're not in the same league as toy companies. So I think that when I look at the number of dead bodies in this industry and all the ones that have started up, and especially when they start moving into plastics, where you end up with a very, very large amount of money being tossed around in order to get things done, I think a cautious approach is warranted. And I think losing sight of kind of checkpoints to make sure that it's still viable, rushing ahead is kind of a fool's errand.
When you're considering wait times for Kickstarters, it must be difficult because at one end, if you set it too low and overcommit and unlock tons of different models, it'll take you over the limit, and then people obviously complain, you'll get a bad reputation. And if you set it too far into the future, people look at that and see, well, do I really want to wait a year for my model when I could just click here on my mouse over to this other website and hey, look at that new release that's out right now, from other companies.
And that, that's the truth of it. I think that's the ball that people who are going to be doing Kickstarters have to juggle. They have to look at what's reasonable for a wait time for their customers and balance that against what. I mean, there's a lot of aspects into that, because if I do a Kickstarter and it's not going to be delivered for a year, you're basically giving a tell to the industry at that point as well. I mean, it's like, hey, look, this is what we've got coming. Can you beat me to market with your resin kit? So that's when I kind of back up and I look at Games Workshop. That's where I can understand them, because none of the things that they're doing are instantaneous. It takes months and months. It doesn't mean that they can't be more forthcoming with their customer base, but I think that they need to wait till it's further along into production, and that's where Kickstarters get scary. Especially if I was just doing resin still, I could have moved a lot quicker on this to get it out, but it wouldn't be too. I wouldn't be able to expand out into the market. I wouldn't be able to hit distribution. I wouldn't be able to go through the normal retail route. With plastic, I can. So when I look at the Kickstarters and I look at doing another one, it kind of goes back to, okay, I need to have most of this stuff really up to the point to where, I mean, we're literally like 2 months away, to where it's basically a month to get the tooling done and a month sea travel to the U.S. And I think that that's probably the best way for me to handle it. Now, the problem with that is that the industry that we're in, and this is not a criticism, people they like their toys. They like the newest and the coolest new things. They want their new shinies, and if you, as a manufacturer, if you can't keep their interest, you're going to lose their interest. So there's this really terrible balance act that you have to do with the plastics, because it takes so long to get them done. So when I look at doing another Kickstarter, I have to be able to do releases in between. And the question is, can my manufacturer do releases in between while still prepping for the next Kickstarter? And that's a question we don't really have a 100% answer to. I know that we want to, but I think it's more important from a success standpoint to keep some product flowing into the market on a continual basis, because I think that it's once you stop that train, it's very hard to get it started again. So I mean, my gut is telling me that if I can't do both, if I can't get kits made to where I can get a release out every month to 2 months while getting a Kickstarter done, I'm better off just skipping a Kickstarter and continuing down the normal retail release.
I'm going to sound really stupid here, but do you have your own actual game system, like your own rulebook, where you can use your miniatures, or is that something that's going to be coming?
Yeah, that's what we're working on. That was kind of what I was talking about with Iron Core. Iron Core is going to be the main game system, and you can go over to Presane Omega. I don't have the address right now, but Roby Jenkins is kind of working on the alpha test. We're going to open it up to the public to take a look at it, to pick it apart, to break it, to give suggestions. Basically, the idea behind this is to have the whole package, and there are some. I mean, basically, I want the game, I want the miniatures, I want opposing faction, and the question is, I guess having started down the road with the Kickstarter and releasing the entire faction at one time, I'm kind of stuck with the model that I have in that sense. It would have been nicer if I was approaching this fresh to do just infantry units, and a faction, an opposing faction, and a game set. But we're already down the other path. So it's a question of how I kind of juggle those priorities to get that done.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to say, how long is it approximately till your next Kickstarter is going to be due?
Well, if we take the same approach, if I'm looking at releasing an entire faction to the size and the scale that we did with the Eisenkern, 18 months, maybe longer, because there's no way kind of around how long it takes to make plastic. It just, without hiring a huge staff, and I mean a huge staff to deal with that, it's not gonna speed up any faster than it is. I mean, when you look at the number of kits that are going to be on the market within less than a 2-year period, I mean, that's 26. So we're averaging a little over a kit a month overall. That's a pretty hard number to argue with. I think that we could have been more strategic on what we released, and I think we would have gotten a little more bang for the buck having, hindsight's 2020. But I think that is kind of that's my litmus. I know that it takes about 20 months to get 24 kits out the door.
Wow.
Well, I think we've reached the most delicious point of the show. Spud, wouldn't you agree?
I think it is that time, prepared for the first time.
Time for the hastily written poem of the week.
Hey.
If Spud would like to provide a drum roll. His skills spawn leviathans, more impressive than a titan. When you see one, your excitement levels will heighten. His models light up Wargamers' faces. He doesn't even put dead bodies on the bases. For a reasonable price, the quality is insane. You can't go wrong with Dreamforge Games.
Bravo! Bravo!
I want to know how you come up with it.
It's just like Jay-Z. It's the white Jay-Z, I think.
Wow.
Let's go with that.
You're going to write me one for tomorrow.
That was wonderful, Andy. Very, very wonderful indeed.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I've actually got a tear in my eye.
So, Mr. Stevie B, it's your time to take over the show with our new section, what we've got for you, everyone out in the world.
Right, Cooking with Steve. Right, today I've got chicken.
Yes, buddy.
Hey. Right.
So, Chess Club 7, what have you got for us this week on Kickstarter news?
Right, well, hastily put together, so don't shoot me if it all goes terribly wrong.
Should we just talk over you while you're talking?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll tell you what, shall I just go out the room and you do it for me?
No, just so there's like loads of stuff.
Oh, God, so professional. Right, first one I've got is the XNO, I don't even know how you're going to say that. It's new from Cool Mini or Not.
Xenoshift.
Yeah, Xenoshift, Onslaught.
Why is Spud telling you how to pronounce something? This is wrong.
Because...
It's because I passed my English exam today.
Right, this is a new one from Cool Mini or Not. It's a board game without any miniatures, which is weird. It's a card game, which is like a wave attacks from the enemy. It's like defend your base, basically. The bit of a backstory is it's a planet where you go and mine from, and one day they went too far. These kind of weird creatures came out, and now basically they're defending it.
So it's like Lord of the Rings, but in the future.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
There's no.
Let's get greedy, don't they?
They do. It's co-op or single player, and to pick up a copy. Sorry, I should be scrolling up and down. I forget you've seen it. You're looking at about $50, which isn't too bad.
Guys.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot it was on screen share. So these are the cards for the bad people. These are the cards for the good people.
See, they've got to bring models out for that, because look at that.
Yeah,
I know.
it's pretty.
Well, that's basically the board.
Looks very interesting.
It's
very interesting.
Okay. Shall we move on to the next one? Boom.
Let's see if you can pronounce this one.
Dust Operation Babylon. Basically, we all know Dust Tactics. We all love Dust Tactics. This is basically like an add-on thing that they're coming out with. Basically, rather than slowly bringing out models each week or whatever they do, they're doing it all in one go. So they're just having a bit of a get together. As you can see, it's done pretty good. So
that just come out yesterday as well.
Well, it's got 14 days left, so I don't know.
Yeah, I like Paolo's work. Very nice stuff.
Yeah. So it's set in the Middle East. Basically, you've got a couple of new factions. You've got the Russians, Allied. It's all in there. I could play the video if you'd like. That'll tell you better than what job I'm doing.
Stevie, you're not selling yourself as our new Kickstarter correspondent.
Well,
here.
I didn't have time to get myself together. I'm not good at writing poems. I've not got a script. I've got 2 bits of scrap paper. So that's it on Kickstarters. One thing that I do want to big up, if I turn that off. Sorry, so professional. Is a thing called Relics.
Like this? This Relics?
Relics? Yeah, that Relics.
A thing called Relics? You mean this Relics?
Wow, we're finally getting them built, are we? Well done, guys.
Well, if you check out my Facebook, ding, right? I've got all mine built in a day. Not even in a day.
Mate, I did mine in 20 minutes.
I did
them all done.
I did 15 minutes while playing chess.
I think I should have gone for a different faction. I've got these guys with their 6 individual chains that need gluing to them.
Don't even get me started on that faction.
So I was building my faction, playing chess, and I built a Leviathan Titan.
Oh mate, you're so full of it. Really, you want
You know what I'm saying?
Get my bad boys out. I put these away today, so I had a nice tidy base.
Base.
But there's all my faction.
Oh, that's a shame.
I managed to pick up the starter set. It's under halfway done, so it shouldn't be that long.
Wait, how long's left on the Game Funder?
A day.
Corresponder. Where do we go?
Well, if you'd all just shut up and let me speak, yo. Gaming Thunder.
You're not Jay-Z, Andy is Jay-Z.
I'm trying. Right, so if we all go to www.gamingfunder.com, you'll come to a thing called Gaming Thunder, which is a new site actually built by the people that do Relics. As you can see, it's got 1 day left, and it's raised 3,644. Basically, we need to get this to 5,000, otherwise Steve is going to go mad. You know
we only need to get another 80% at least, so then I can get my guy.
No,
he's doing quite well considering this website is only just launched.
So is that their kind of version of a private Kickstarter?
Yeah, it is. Instead
cool.
of the 5%, it's only 2%, I think.
Ah.
Something like that.
So this is what we need to hit, guys. Right, there's only 64 people being back. Spud, how many viewers have we got watching right now?
You'd have to ask Andy.
At the moment, we have 8 viewers, but we had a few more than that earlier. I think they just all tuned out as soon as you started talking.
Right.
I think I put them to sleep.
Right, basically, we need to unlock these heavy dragoons. If we could, then we can go for these Britann Rangers, but we don't know if
How much is mine to unlock? There you go.
Oh.
There she is. There she is.
Right, so anyway. Here we have, basically, it's mainly to bring out these portal terrain sets. But obviously, they're just trying to get everything finished in the rulebook to bring out new stuff. We've got some new mercenary models that they're bringing out.
Oh, I'm recognizing these guys now.
Yeah. And we discovered when we did our own little chat with Gavin, there's the different factions. The best one to go for is this £75 an army. This is the one that's going to save you the most money. So go for this one, and we need to get the amount to £5,000, and then I'll be a happy wargamer.
Now, Stevie, I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you. See, we had the secret little chat with Mark last night, and he told us that he was going to give the Chilling Wargamers 6 Leviathans, and we just decided we'd have 3 each because you weren't there. So.
What? No.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Yeah, and what's happening is so then I can build another one to keep on my mantelpiece, one to be in my cat bed, and one to my grandma.
Right, 1 minute, hang on. Andy, I didn't want to bring this up, right, but I'm gonna. Let me take you back to Saturday night.
Oh.
Right?
Am I here blackmail?
Yeah. Right? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You had a piss-stained floor. What?
See, he wouldn't even let me have half the bed in the hotel room.
Hey, I asked. I even offered spooning. I didn't mind being the big one.
Lovers tiffs, only on Chilling Wargamers.
So professional.
Lovers tiffs.
I'll be getting one of them, don't you worry. I've always done them. If not, Mark will send me one out anyway, won't you, Mark?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, if Spud or I make a mess of assembling one,
yeah.
pass it on.
Oh, right.
Right,
okay.
You can just have one with an arm that just droops.
We'll just send you sprues so you can design your own. You went out of sprues.
Right, well, Mark, let me tell you, I'm going to sell myself to you. You see this bad boy on my desk? I built this today and reviewed it. Do you know how much it cost the people? Do you know how much this cost Mantic to review? Nothing, right? This fantastic piece, right, it comes fully assembled. You got a gun. Oh.
See, he doesn't charge them anything for this. This is good stuff.
What a great price.
No, and you get a little antenna, right?
Yeah.
All I'm saying. 14 quid, £14.99, only available from Mantic.
For that? Just for all that?
That is it. What are you on about just for that?
No,
that is exceptionally good. Oh, right. Yeah. It's wonderful, hard plastic. It's really easy to put together. You could practically do this glueless.
This is the bit where you tell us, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there is more.
Shamwow.
Mantic, if you are watching, if you send me any more, I'll do it for free. I'll review anything you send me. I won't say the word.
Yeah, prostitute.
Wow!
What a nice guy.
It's after 9 PM here, Spud.
Oh,
yeah. Only just, 4 minutes past.
But then this is a worldwide show.
Yeah.
Oh, God. You've got to add a bit of comedy to it, haven't you?
Popular in many countries.
Also, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, I got my Broken Toad Artisan Quarter pigment brushes.
I didn't get any.
My Broken Toad miniature series, Kalinsky brushes, deliciousness. So we'll leave a link below. Go check them out as well. Proper sexy. My first ever proper professional brush.
Oh my.
Ever.
Nice.
Do you not just use like a chicken feather?
I don't know it.
I'm thinking I could potentially use my delightful facial hair as a brush eventually. It's getting to kind of a point.
I've used my beard for green stuff in before. I push the green stuff into my beard to give my green stuff texture.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Top tips on chilling Wargamers.
Yeah, that's my tip of the week. Use facial hair at all costs.
I'm sure Stevie could just run the underside of his chin over some models for a bit of dry brushing.
Right. I swear to God. Wait until I see you tomorrow.
Imagine if Michael did that. If Michael did it with his big beard, he could steal people's models without even knowing.
He probably does.
Nice. That's a nice painted model. He just leans over the table, picks it up with his beard. See that, guys? Walks off. So it's got to that part of the show where
we haven't talked at all about chicken yet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I've found out that Morrison's now are doing 5 chicken thighs for £5.69. Right, and yesterday I went to Morrison's and got the same deal, but there were chicken legs.
Oh, that's not right.
Yep. So I went today and told them, and she was like, "All right, that right." Didn't even get an apology.
You should have rang me. I would have started.
I should just turned over everything. She just turned up all eaters.
Well, before we go off the air, we should really ask our guest what his favourite chicken dish is.
Yeah.
I don't have one.
Whoa.
I know. Well, I mean, here in the States, what do we got? We have Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's not good stuff.
We'll accept that as an answer.
Yeah, we'll take it.
If the Colonel was alive today, Spud would marry him.
Yeah.
I think he would.
No, I'd get him to adopt me legally. That's what I'd do. I won't marry him. A bit old for me.
Bit old. Yeah, think of all the free chicken.
Yeah, but if he's my dad, it was just amazing.
You'd have access to his secret recipe.
Yeah.
Oh my. It won't be secret then.
SFC, Spud fried chicken.
He'd be drinking his gravy day and night.
Yeah.
Gravy bath.
I would have a gravy bath, that would be pretty sick.
My oh my.
On this note, we should probably draw this one to a close, Spud.
Yeah, so anyway, guys, all you guys that have stuck with us all the way through these seasons, it's pretty emotional, like you people. We counted the other day, we've done 58 episodes or something of Chilling Wargamers, plus all the secret shows and everything, and it's without you guys, we wouldn't do it, you know, keeping supporting and sharing and subscribing, so it means a lot to us. So if I win lottery this weekend, I'll buy you all a Mars bar. Or I'll buy you a bargain bucket each. Does that sound alright? Because there's only 8 people watching anyway, so. But yeah, all the people that watch us afterwards as well, because obviously the time difference and everything. We appreciate everything.
We'll take the entire audience out to KFC.
Yeah, thank you to all the guests that we've had this season and all the sponsors, and I'd like to thank you, Mark, for coming on to the show. It's been awesome. When he said yeah to coming on the show, it must have been around 4 AM my time. I'd finished work and I'm like, you know what? Oh no, it's because you hired me, didn't you? You hired me for Dreamforge.
I did.
Mark actually hired me for Dreamforge without even me knowing.
I think I hired about 30 to 40 people that day.
Yeah, all in one day, and we got talking from then, and Mark agreed to come on the show, and I was just like running around the house naked. It was amazing. So I'd like to thank you and your great products. It's just awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys. Honored to be on the last show of the season. Hopefully I didn't sink your show.
No, I did that all by myself.
Yeah, that happened in around 50 minutes. It's too late now, we can't edit it. Andy, have you got any last final thoughts of the season?
Yes. Everyone should keep an eye on Facebook to find out when the next season's starting and who the next batch of guests are, because as red hot and sizzling as this season's guests were, we are going to try and crank it up another notch next season, if that's even possible. We're going to try, though, because we owe it to our wonderful audience.
Stevie B, any last thoughts? It's like Jerry Springer, this bit, isn't it?
Yeah, if you guys have got any suggestions of who you'd like to be on the show, let us know. That's the one sensible thing I'm going to say all show.
Just a comment, not Stevie.
Right, well, I'll tell you what, I quit. I would end the call, but then they won't let me back in. Oh, alright, Spudge, yeah, alright. Alright, like that, is it? I'll remember that, right?
Yep, so the first episode of Season 5 is going to be the party episode.
I will audition the RIP of Stevie B, but he's a legend, is he? What a nice guy.
No.
And Nancy Jets!
It's alright, I remember that when you want to lift in October.
Okay, no worries, mate. Ooh. So, guys, once again, I'd like to thank you all. Please check out the links for Dreamforge and just emotional times. I don't know what else to say.
It has gone really quick this season.
This season's going really, really fast. It's like...
Oh, we're doing this again?
8 episodes of awesomeness. So,
this takes me back.
This takes us back to the Creature Caster Kickstarter. Wiping tears with my claws. Emotional times. So, guys, thank you very much. Stay safe and don't forget to wear your seatbelts. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
That too.